Okay, I'm ready to start. This public hearing of the Baltimore County Council will now come to order. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Kathy Bevins, and I'm the chair of the County Council and also represent the 6th Council District. I welcome you to this public hearing on the proposed 5th District zoning map. As our legislative sessions, work sessions, and public hearings since the COVID-19 pandemic began, we are convening this public hearing virtually via WebEx video teleconference. I would like to introduce my colleagues, Councilman Tom Quirk, who represents the 1st District.
Good evening. Good evening.
Councilman Izzy Patoka represents the 2nd District.
Good evening, everyone.
Councilman Wade Cash represents the 3rd District.
Good evening, everyone.
Councilman Julian Jones represents the 4th District. And he is with us. He's just having issues communicating. And Councilman David Marks represents the 5th District. And Councilman Todd Crandall.
Good evening.
Thank you. And Councilman Todd Crandall represents the 7th District.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good evening, everyone.
A copy of the recommended map and log of issues with planning board recommendations is posted on the county's website at www.baltimorecounty.gov/agency/planning/CZMP. This hearing is one of 7 scheduled public hearings during the month of June concerning the proposed 2020 comprehensive zoning map. Tonight's hearing will be dealing exclusively with possible changes to the 5th District zoning map as recommended to the County Council by the Planning Board. The hearing procedures before the County Council are posted on the virtual meetings page of the Council's website and on the Council's Facebook page and are as follows. Anyone wishing to testify should have registered with the County Council in advance via email. Documents could also be attached to this email. This registration enables the county staff to recognize the person and unmute their microphone so they can speak in this video hearing. Speaker registration via email commenced on today's date from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. In order to testify, a person must join this WebEx event and have an internet-capable device because it is not possible to identify a person who uses a phone only to listen in during the hearing. Each person testifying at the hearing will be given 3 minutes to speak. The purpose of the time limitation is not to restrict your public input, but rather to ensure that everyone who has signed up to address us this evening has the opportunity to do so. The order of testimony will be based on the time a person's email was received for this hearing. Only persons who register to testify via email will be permitted to speak. In fairness to everyone who properly registered, when a person has concluded their remarks, the host of the meeting, our council administrator, will mute their microphone and the next person's name will be called. And their microphone will be unmuted and they will be asked to give their remarks. And this process will continue until all persons who registered to testify had the opportunity to speak. In fairness to all persons and to expedite the meeting, it is requested that repetitive comments on the same issue not be given. If someone before you has presented very similar testimony, you may simply comment that your concerns have been previously raised and waive your time. Before we begin, Councilman Marks, do you have any opening remarks? David?
I'd like to thank you. Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I would like to welcome those who are testifying on issues as part of the comprehensive zoning map process. I can assure you that I am watching on video and listening on my phone. This year, there are 79 rezoning issues in the 5th District. I initiated 38 of those issues. I take my responsibility very seriously and promise that I will give full consideration to every request. My philosophy on rezoning has been clear since I was elected to the County Council. Respect property rights wherever possible, honor the master plan, and encourage community organizations and landowners to find common ground. We must have some level of growth to revitalize our aging communities and expand our tax base. If we're going to preserve green space, particularly in the north, we must thoughtfully redevelop our aging communities, such as those along the Joppa Road corridor. At the same time, I do not want our older neighborhoods overwhelmed with infill development and remain concerned about school overcrowding. That is why in 2012, this council passed legislation creating neighborhood commons or open space zoning. We've applied open space zoning to thousands of acres throughout Baltimore County and the 5th District. We have also downzoned in the 5th District a significant amount of acreage to lighten school overcrowding. During the budget hearings, I made it clear that I was disappointed that the Planning Department staff did not recommend neighborhood common zoning on a single property. The Planning Board, however, tried to find a middle approach, and I will now use those recommendations as a good starting point. It has always been my belief that we can both preserve green space and have thoughtful development in Baltimore County. In conclusion, I would like to thank all those who are participating tonight, and I would like to thank the staff for their service to Baltimore County.
Thank you, Councilman Marks. Ms. Belcastro, who is our first speaker this evening?
Our first speaker is Cynthia Eisenrock, and I'm going to find her on our list here momentarily.
And one more thing to add, Madam Chair, this is Tom Bostwick. We do have Jen Meacham, who is with the Department of Planning, and she is, as people are speaking, she is putting that particular issue number with the zoning map on the screen so people can see what property a person is testifying about.
Very good. Isn't technology wonderful?
Yes.
It really is. It really is. Okay, Ms. Belcastro, you can just let us know when you found the first speaker.
Okay. Ms. Eisenrock, you are unmuted, and you can begin your testimony now. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Kathy Bivens. So from what I understand today, and if you could correct me if I'm wrong, I've heard that this is a non-event, that the property is going to stay, is recommended by the Planning Board, I believe, to stay in the condition that it's in, and that there's really no reason for me to go into length about why I don't want it to see it changed. I don't know if you can verify that for me or not.
Ma'am, when we have these hearings, we don't usually interact. We just, you have to just state whether you support or oppose.
I do not support any change.
Okay.
Yeah, we're progressing. I understand Mr. Marks thinks it's incredibly slowly, and it has, but it's just the pace that we've been at. But we are going to start to see some momentum. I have had conversations with several investors. I believe one of them is speaking to Mr. Marks. So things are progressing as planned so far, but to turn this into a park would stifle any type of improvement that the owner and I have plans for it, or the current owner, let me just say. So I'm just not, I'm not for it turning into a park. It's a cemetery, it's a cemetery, it's a cemetery. That's really all I have to say. I can yield the rest of mine if there's anything left.
Thank you so much
Another.
for joining us this
Again,
evening.
thank you very much.
Thank you. Ms. Belcastro, our next speaker, please.
Yes. Our next speaker is Tracy Marcantoni, and Tracy Marcantoni, are you there?
I am. Good evening.
You may start your testimony.
Thank you. I am Tracy Marcantoni of 27 Normal Terrace. I am representing the Berkeley Square Community Association, a community of 90 homes located at the corner of York and Burke. We would like to see no change in zoning for the area outlined in issue 5-062. We sent a letter last week explaining our position on the issue, but wanted to add a comment to that. During the April 21st, 2020 Planning Board hearings, it was brought up that Leo's, an automotive garage located in this area, wants his property rezoned because he has a sign he wants to keep on the top of his building and not get cited for. He did not put in for the zoning change in the beginning of the CZMP process, but his lawyer has since requested through this process that it be changed. His property has been recommended by the Planning Board to change his zoning from RO to BM. Even though public comments from surrounding community members overwhelmingly request no change in zoning for the whole 5-062 area. We urge you to stand with your constituents and not support any change. A change places an area of BM in between an established community, a business that is RO, and a stretch of land that is BL. It concerns us that this area will eventually be changed to zoning that is not cohesive with residential communities. We have worked hard to preserve our communities and would appreciate our representatives doing the same. Please keep the zoning as is in this total area outlined in 5-062. Please make no change. Leave the zoning as is. Thank you, the Berkeley Square Community Association.
Thank you, Ms. Marcantoni, for joining us this evening and for your testimony.
Thank you.
Ms. Belcastro, our next speaker, please.
Our next speaker is Christine Simmons, but I cannot locate Ms. Simmons on the list of attendees, so I'm not sure if they changed their mind, but we can always go back.
Okay.
So the next speaker would be Mark Salvo. Mr. Salvo, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Okay, you may begin your testimony.
Thank you, and board, thanks for taking the time to listen to my talk. I purchased this property at 11708 Stocksdale in the 1990s. The prior owner had sold roughly 3.5 acres to the neighbor on the left-hand side of the picture. So you could move the property line from their driveway to the right if you're looking at the house from the road. The neighbor has built a shed on the property and uses it with together with his original lot as a single property. With that sale, the additional building right that the 11708 Stocksdale property once held was eliminated. I filed my zoning change and request to try and regain that single building right. I requested RC5, which would permit more than one additional lot, although I really only seek that one building right. The Planning Board is recommending RC8, signaling that one additional building right is appropriate. But we are in the process of evaluating whether RC8 will work for this facility or not. We don't know that yet. We still have not got that report back. In the end, I'm only asking for the original building right to be restored, regardless of the zone actually applied. I would agree to some type of covenant on the property to limit the ability to hold an additional building lot. Okay, I'm done.
All right, thank you, Mr. Salvo, for joining us tonight and spending time giving us your testimony. Appreciate it.
Have a good night.
You too. Ms. Belcastro, next speaker, please.
Our next speaker is Ed Kilcullen. Mr. Kilcullen,
Yes,
you may begin your testimony.
thank you. Good evening, members of the County Council. My name is Ed Kilcullen. I'm testifying on issue 5-062. I'm the chair of the Government Relations Committee for the Towson Communities Alliance, a membership organization comprised of more than 30 community associations and 40,000 residents in the greater Towson area. And I'm a longtime resident of Towson Manor Village, the residential community which includes the properties included in this CZMP issue. Towson Communities Alliance feels strongly that there should be no change to the current zoning on the assemblage of properties along York Road and partially east on Willow Avenue. We are opposed to the Planning Board's recommendation to increase the zoning on 14 Willow Avenue to business major. This property is currently zoned RO, but an auto repair shop, Leo's Garage, has operated as a non-conforming use for many years and with no change in the underlying zoning through many CZMP processes. As Ms. Marcantoni stated, we understand that the impetus for the zoning change is to allow the auto shop to retain an illegal sign on the building, which would be allowed by right with BM zoning. While Leo's Garage likely has many customers who support the business and TCA, and particularly the residential, while Leo's Garage likely has many customers who support the business, the TCA and particularly the residential community surrounding the property oppose any change in the zoning that would allow the operation of an auto repair shop by right, and worse, the potential high-density development that could arise with BM zoning. Further, the office building adjoining the garage could easily argue in the next CZMP that this property should also be rezoned to BM, creating a domino effect. This property is surrounded on 3 sides by new residential development. A change in zoning would seriously impact this now stable community. The garage has a history of negative impact on the Towson Manor Village community, including illegally operating a cab company from the shop, with cabs lined up on Willow Avenue awaiting dispatch and then left there overnight. The shop has also been cited for illegally storing inoperable and untagged vehicles on the property and has been a source of much disruption to the community, with mechanics working on vehicles on the street, test driving vehicles at high speed up Willow Avenue, etc. Fortunately, these problems have diminished since extensive efforts by the community and Baltimore County Code Enforcement to curtail the illegal activities at the shop. But the garage is not into compliance with the county zoning regulations by maintaining its illegal sign. We continue to deal with tow trucks transporting vehicles to the garage 24/7 on neighborhood streets and auto parts delivery vehicles making deliveries during business hours. By allowing the zoning change, it is rewarding the garage for its non-compliance and posing significant harm to the surrounding neighborhood. We urge the council to support no change in zoning on issue 5-062. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your testimony this evening, sir. Ms. Belcastro, our next speaker.
Yes, our next speaker is Joseph, and I hope I say this correctly, Sham. And
Now,
are you there?
I am here. Now,
Okay.
thank
You
you.
may begin your testimony.
Okay, can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Okay. My name's Joseph, or sometimes known as Bruff Shamp. I'm a member of the Green Towson Alliance, and I'm speaking to all of you honorable council members about issue 5-036, which is, as you can see in the map, is actually Radabaugh Park. The image that's shown is not, of course, the current condition of the park. So I'm talking about changing the Radabaugh Park zoning from DR, no, to DR1-NC. And the Green Towson Alliance urges that this new county park be designated as an NC, or neighborhood commons. The planning board has recommended the zoning change, and we hope the county council concurs. Radabaugh Park is a community resource of public open space that is within walking and bicycling distance of thousands of Towson area residents and is accessible to people of all ages and abilities. The 2.4 acre property includes the entrance lot at 11 Maryland Avenue and has had tremendous community support in the acquisition of the land and the planning and creation of the park itself. Radabaugh Park should be preserved for use as a county park for our communities now and in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you for joining us, and thank you for your testimony this evening.
You're welcome.
Ms. Belcastro, next speaker, please.
Our next speaker is Michelle Yendel, and let me find her on our list. Ms. Yendel?
Yes,
Okay, you may begin your testimony.
thank you very much. I am a resident of Harris Hill condominium, and we're in the 400 block of East Joppa Road. Our issue deals with, unfortunately, we were late to the party. Trying to get the zoning down is simply because we did not realize such large buildings and occupancy could be built on a piece of property that has terrible drainage and causes such problems on East Pennsylvania Avenue, the 400 block, to the residents there. Our little community, East Towson, generally speaking, has been bisected by the Towson Town Boulevard, and we have a tremendous traffic problem at Joppa, and the building that's to be built there will house 50-some apartments, and they will only have one way in, egress, coming from the west or leaving to the east on Joppa Road. Those of you who are traveling in that area already understand our problem. We have no walkability in Towson as it is. And as I said, this is a water damage area. They have been given a variance by environmental zoning. We believe it's going to continue to exacerbate the problem on East Pennsylvania, which generally loses passability with heavy rainstorms. In addition to that, in the community, we have elementary and middle and high schools that are all in excess of 100% of capacity. And so putting in more families are going to be problematic. There is no public transportation. I don't care what the MTA says, from East Joppa Road to anywhere. So it's going to be quite difficult for people who may be using that. The traffic pattern, as I said, is quite problematic. And we already have tight goings on East Pennsylvania Avenue, as well as McManus, the street in Harris Hill, which is private, maintained completely by us, and will most likely pick up an additional 100 cars a day because we need it. There are so many other reasons why we would like it to not be built, and not the least of those would be to leave something green in our little section of Towson. I heard Mr. Marks in the beginning talk about the development of areas where it might need it. We are within 6 walking blocks of all the development you could possibly want. We have apartments going in at the corner of Delaney and Joppa. We have apartments on Chesapeake. We have plenty of construction going on. That isn't our problem. We have some empty buildings on Joppa Road that might very well do for this purpose of these apartments with renovation. And this little tiny slice of green is all you've got until you get to White Marsh. So we'd like to see if we couldn't possibly work with the county as a community and do something to help maybe purchase the property and turn it into some kind of a quiet path area. I know that we're asking a different complete animal. We're asking you to not approve something that's out there, and apparently we were asking for too much in a zoning change. But we really are very much concerned with what this is going to do to our tiny little community of probably about 300 people. The other mention that Mr. Marks said was something about taxes. Well, apartment dwellers do not pay property tax, but we do. And we would really, really like to do something to maintain our area and to cut down on the traffic problems and to cut down on the water damage problems. Thank you very much.
Ms. Jendal, thank you so much for participating this evening. Your time is up. We appreciate your remarks. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Ms. Belcastro, next speaker.
Our next speaker is Beth Miller. Ms. Miller, are you there?
I am.
Okay, you may begin your testimony.
Before I begin, I requested to speak on a number of issues, so am I doing these one at a time, it looks like?
Your 3 minutes would be for all the issues. That's how it would be in an in-person hearing.
Well, I am addressing I'm representing 2 different organizations depending on the issue. So I will do my best. So I'll begin with issue 5056. I'm doing this as a representative of the Annesley Community Association Board. I appreciate that Councilman Marks raised this issue. Our community is very invested in maintaining our Main Street character in this small commercial district and concerned about a recent development that turned a bank into a fast food drive-through restaurant. Unfortunately, it does not appear to us that there's a zoning classification that meets the needs of this area. The planning department noted that the proposed zoning of commercial business would create several non-conforming uses in this area. I just want to mention we love our bowling alley, we love our yoga and fitness studios and dance studios, and especially considering the vulnerability of some of these existing businesses that might close due to COVID-19. We don't want a zoning classification that would drive potential new tenants away because it's too restrictive. But we also, we also do very much want to prevent fast food. We don't want hookah and vapor lounges. We don't want car rental agencies or other things that are allowed by special exception, which is quite a burden on us to defend against in a special exception hearing process. So I would ask that you consider, we either need a new zoning use designation completely, such as something that is a Main Street type zoning, or something that a specially legislated zone that protects the character of our neighborhood's commercial district. Moving on to issue 5077. And I will say 5074 at the same time. We support the neighborhood comment. I'm sorry, now I'm representing the Green Towson Alliance, putting on a different hat. We support the neighborhood commons designation for both of these properties. Cancer Survivors Park would be consistent with other Baltimore County owned park properties that have received this designation. And the 5 acres in issue 5074 along Cromwell Bridge Road, because it is county property, would also be appropriate for neighborhood commons. And we support this because of just the preservation of that open space. Issue 5050, GTA advocates for downzoning to the lowest possible residential density on this property. This is 14.61 acres that if developed at DR 5.5 would allow up to 80 homes. Most of the properties in this neighborhood are much smaller, 8,000 to 10,000 square feet per property. And they're single family homes. The development that would be allowed on that 14 acres would probably end up being townhomes. And it is adjacent to the Herring Run. It's heavily wooded currently. We would expect that if it were to be developed to its full density, there would end up being environmental waivers, open space waivers to accommodate the parking, the buildings, the circulation within the property. So we advocate for a downzoning on that property. Sorry, I ran a little long.
Time is up. Thank you so much for joining us this evening and testifying on 2 separate.
And I will add, Ms. Miller, that we did receive your written testimony on all of each issue, and it has been recorded as written testimony as well.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Ms. Miller. Ms. Belcastro, our next speaker.
Our next speaker was Shannon McDonald. However, I cannot find Ms. McDonald on the list, so we're going to move on. Okay. And I have a Nancy Goldring, and she is not on our list as well. So I'm going to move on to our last speaker, who would be Mr. Weaver. Mr. Weaver, are you on?
Yeah, yes, I am.
Okay, you may begin your testimony.
First and foremost, I want to thank the county council for allowing me to speak tonight. And this really is just a shout out to Councilman Marks. We look at issue 5-068 as the quintessential example of how elected officials can work with the community to right size and properly zone a community. So we wholeheartedly support Councilman Marks in downzoning the properties to DR 3.5. And Councilman Marks, thanks for serving as a consummate professional and supporting us in this initiative. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us this evening in your testimony. Ms. Belcastro, next speaker.
That is the last speaker for this evening, and I have scrolled through our list of attendees and our missing registered
They never
speakers
came
are
back.
not on.
Okay, alrighty then. I want to thank all my colleagues for being present tonight to hear the issues proposed in the 5th District with Councilman Marks. And I'd also like to thank all the listeners and folks that took the time to testify on the issues that are important to them, whether they support them or oppose them. So this public hearing is now closed, and I wish you all good night.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And just a reminder, the next one is this Thursday at 4 p.m. for District Number 4.
Okie dokie, we'll all be there.
Thank you. Great job, Jen.
Thank you.